Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, MLB style here. I'm your host, Josh Lander, accompanied by Nate Weitzer and Mo Nawara. As always, we'll be taking a look at a few of these MLB lines here tonight for Tuesday night around the league. Just want to make clear to you guys, we are looking at those nighttime games, so we have time to get those over to you in time ahead of those. Nighttime games a little easier to get ahead of than the morning time games and early afternoon, obviously. So we will do our best to cap those as best we can, and we do have plenty that we like tonight. So we'll take a look at some of the best bets in here for you guys. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page so you can continue to get all these videos we'll be bringing you each and every weekday. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or a DraftKings account, head to FDPicks.com or DKPicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as some of the lines we have for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, I like how you call them morning games because you're a West Coast dude.
10 a.m., man.
Yeah. We're starting at 110 here with the Red Sox playing another relatively early start. They're minus 130 at Detroit. The Mariners in the White Sox home opener, Mariners are plus 110 with Vince Velasquez opening for the White Sox there. Shane Bieber and the Guardians are at the Reds in their home opener. Drew Smyly and the Cubs about to toss up in the Pirates home opener there. Then you got the A's plus 170 or 180 at the Rays. And then you get into some of the games we're going to look at here. Mets plus 140 at the Phillies. We got Tyler McGill against Zach Wheeler. Wheeler going up against his former team. The Brewers minus 150 with Eric Law on the mound against the Orioles. Blue Jays plus toss up at the Yankees there. Both soft throwing lefties there. Yossi Kikuchi and Nestor Cortez. We'll see if that turns into a bullpen battle. The Marlins throwing their lefty, Jesus Luzardo, against another lefty, Patrick Sandoval, out in L.A. Miami is plus 140 in that game. The Nats are plus 140 at the Braves. Dodgers minus 145 at the Twins, who will debut Chris Archer. The Royals, huge underdogs, plus 190 at St. Louis. Rockies plus 130 at Rangers. We're going to talk about that game a little bit as well with two bad pitchers on the mound. Madison Bumgarner and the Diamondbacks are plus 130 as they host the Astros. And then finally, Yu Darvish versus Alex Cobb out in San Francisco. That is a toss-up. So going through all those options there, what do you guys like tonight?
I know this is going to shock people who have been watching the show, but I like the Rockies again. I guess I'm just going to keep betting the Rockies until either I change my mind or the market changes its mind. I think this is the fourth time in their first 5 I've taken them. It's going pretty good so far. Got the W today to get to 3-1. This one, it's like you said, it's two bad pitchers. And these two bad pitchers are backed by bad bullpens and bad offenses, just two bad baseball teams. And that's pretty much why I like the Rockies at. They're plus 130 on the overnight. And I just think laying minus 150 on the other side on Texas is just totally insane, basically, when anything could happen in this game pretty much. It kind of reminds me of a game at Coors where just should be a lot of offense, and that makes the variance pretty crazy, and that makes so favorites lose value basically. And I like that the Rockies against lefties should be a little better this year. Chris Bryant been a lefty killer his whole career, and then to a lesser extent they got Randall Grichuk as well from the Jays. I think just look for Martin Perez's velocity, and you'll probably know what's going to happen in this game, because when he's been throwing 93 to 95, he's been an okay pitcher in recent years, but when he's throwing down to like 92, 93 on his heater, he's been getting crushed. So probably a good spot to live bet.
Yeah, and I would be looking at a lot of runs here. Exactly what you're saying with Chris Bryant, Randall Grichuk, and CJ Cron. Those are some lefty killers there in the middle of that Rockies lineup. Martin Perez in a successful year with the Red Sox, I guess I put that in quotations, had a nice 1.8 home run per 9 ratio and 35% hard contact rate against righties. You go back to the last time when he was with the Rangers, welcome back in 2018 when he had a 6.2 ERA and allowed a 47% hard hit rate at Globe Life, which is now called Choctaw Stadium. Has a little bit lower of a home run factor. Now they changed the fences there, but still, I think plenty of opportunities. I mean, when these pitchers can't really get anybody out to put up some runs, the Rangers are averaging 13 and a half runs in their 4 games so far. And they'll be facing Chad Cull, who's a very low ground ball rate pitcher. You know, you're going to get a lot of barrels with him. In 2021, he posted a 2.3 home run per 9 ratio on the road and an absurd kind of 37% home run to fly ball ratio to lefties on the road away from the spacious confines of PNC. So Corey Seager and company, I mean, I would look at his props when they're available for Seager to get total bases there in this matchup. I mean, Cole gets crushed by lefties for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, 10.5 is a large bit of runs there. But I think, what you're saying here, Nate, especially with that 13.3 runs already for the Rangers, I think it's going to be pretty kind of the norm for the season for that team, in a good matchup for them to hit some balls out of that park, as you mentioned. Another game moving on that I guess near and dear to my heart, the New York Mets. I mean, a 9-run total there is actually the first thing I'm looking at. We've got McGill going against Zach Wheeler. And I mean, I will say, Tyler McGill was a nice surprise for the Mets and a surprise start that they needed him, pitching really well against the Nats. I think you could probably expect a bit more of that. I mean, his fastball looked really, really good. Obviously, I was watching that game. He was definitely hitting that 99 mile an hour mark very consistently, which is what I was looking for, at least from him. But I think that might lead to an under. At least that's what I would lean towards in this game. Nate, what's your take on the Mets taking on the Phillies in Philly?
Yeah, I like the under. I think first, you're right to start as a starting point because I think both of these guys throw gas. I lean towards the Phillies, but I mean, Mo says it's a fair line. You're not getting a ton of value either way. I just love you call me Dr. Revenge when we do our NBA props. And I love the fact that Wheeler, who couldn't get paid by the Mets, has already faced them 8 times and has gotten better and better each time he faces his old team. And his last 3 is a 25 to 4K to walk ratio, 3-0, 0.43 ERA. I mean, he just has such a live fastball, and his slider that he really improved last year just made him a punch-out artist where people couldn't really touch him. I mean, 0.87 whip at home with a 7.5 K to walk ratio, just in total command out there. McGill, as a rookie, it looked like he struggled against lefties. He was way better in the righty-righty matchup. So that's a little concerning. That makes me lean Phillies with Bryce Harper and Schwarber and those guys out there. But I guess McGill kind of showcased an improved cutter and slider in that debut this year. I suppose that's what he was working on in the offseason. So as long as he can run it in on those guys and not let them get their hands extended, he should be able to keep the Phillies in check too. And I think 9 runs is a lot when you have these quality pitchers going.
I'm with you guys. McGill, like you said, Josh, his average heater was 95.9 in that first game. So if he's throwing this much harder, and we all know how good Wheeler is. So I think it's definitely possible the market is underrating McGill. So the total seems too high to me too. And especially, the Phillies, I don't think it's a great pen, but it's definitely improved from last year. So these pens are not as flammable as they were last year. The Mets, I think, should be fine as well. So I'm also a fan of this under.
Yeah, it's going to be a good pitching matchup. And I'll take us to one last game maybe tonight. Tossing to you there, Mo, in terms of the Fish headed to Anaheim there again, taking on LA to take for this series. A couple of nice pitchers in this one, a couple of guys that have shown some stuff, especially when they were in the minors.
Yeah, definitely. Not a spot I'm excited to bet right now. So it's just more of a spot I'm looking to see what these pitchers look like for the future. Jesus Luzardo was a very, very elite prospect. But he really, after a nice rookie season, looked really promising. But then he just completely lost his feel for the strike zone. last season, command and control just completely fell off a cliff. Zone percent dropped 6%. His called strikes dropped. And this is a guy who was considered to have solid command as a prospect. So he was reportedly hitting 98 in the spring. And that's one of the things you can take away from the spring. So I'm interested in him as like a guy who could really bounce back this year. And Patrick Sandoval just was really good last year, kind of out of the blue. He was pretty terrible before. And then he kind of changed his pitch mix a little bit. He added a sinker, cut the use of his four-seamer, which was pretty bad and made up almost half his pitches. And then he upped the use of his changeup, which is his best pitch, through that 30%. And he ended up with a swinging strike rate over 15%, which is like, that's like Max Scherzer level swinging strikes. So if he can sustain that sort of thing, we need to be ready to bet him going forward, basically.
Yeah, and I'm also going to keep an eye on Chris Archer debuting for the Twins. I mean, he had very limited work last year, and I think sat out 2020. I think you can get some value for betting the Twins here with the Dodgers so early in the season, throwing Andrew Heaney. That's not really the top-notch starter we're accustomed to seeing from the Dodgers, and that a Twins lineup is really good. I mean, improved obviously with Carlos Correa in there, and should be pretty tough for Heaney to navigate. I think you can get some value with the home team here in Minnesota.
For sure. Yeah. Like we said, some pretty good nightcaps here, especially depending where you are. Some of these might start in the afternoon for you if you're me, but evening time, obviously, on the East Coast. And we'll look to continue to bring these videos to you, especially this long form one here, each and every weekday. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page so you continue to follow us as we roll along in this MLB season. And until we see you next, happy betting.